the whole protein thing and the obsessive consumption that I was doing all that time became a bit unnecessary when I started to realize the difference in looking a certain way and feeling a certain but it just became one of those things where I started to realize it's perhaps very unnecessary to have to wake up and cook my meat for the day or something and then go and do a run, or because it was very counterintuitive to health to carry so much extra weight and muscle and just eat so much food that wasn't necessarily nutritious from a micronutrient standpoint, which is what then started to speed up the recovery when I started to eat more fruits and vegetables. So it became a very kind of natural shift once I realized that the meat side of it for me personally was very unnecessary, and it actually affected me. If I did a bike ride or if I did a run, my stomach would feel horrendous. But if I ate quite clean during the day, had a salad, pretty basic stuff in the early days, potatoes instead of processed foods and things like that, started to just feel so energetic, and with no extra effort, I just started to get so much fitter, so much faster. It was quite quick how much I noticed the difference from switching the foods.
That was Glen John Jones, and this is the Alter Your Health podcast, your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. My name is Dr. Benjamin Alter. For those of you who don't know me yet, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you are here right now with me. So nice to have you. I'm a licensed naturopathic doctor. In addition to being the host of this podcast, I practice holistic lifestyle medicine worldwide, all online. You can find out more and get yourself on the schedule for a complimentary 15-minute exploratory visit at www.alter.health. Learn how we, being myself and the co-host of this podcast, Dr. Susanna Alter, my wife, learn how we can support you in achieving your health and your life goals using whole food, plant-based nutrition, and also mind-body medicine, because we know how important your mind is in this whole equation of health and well-being, how powerful your mind is also in supporting you in healing. So now on into this conversation with Glen John Jones, who is a personal trainer based in London and also a new author. He wrote a book called Think and Grow Vegan. We talk about his book, we talk about his journey, and we talk about these stages that one can take into a plant-based lifestyle, into an optimally healing diet and lifestyle. Because some people like me, I'm the kind of guy where, just like a switch is flipped and it's just, all right, I'm in it to win it. But I think some people do benefit from having a little bit of a roadmap laid out, some stages, some steps, some tangible action steps to take them from point A to point B, like Glen John Jones has taken in his life. So he shares his journey, which, goes through from an omnivorous diet to kind of a pescatarian diet to a vegetarian diet to a mostly vegan diet to a vegan diet. I think those are the stages. But anyways, you can find out more, obviously, by staying tuned for the rest of this episode and also getting your hands on a copy of Glen John Jones's book, Think and Grow Vegan. So before we dive in, be sure to give Glen John Jones a follow on Instagram at Glen John Jones. And also he has an account, Think and Grow Vegan. While you're at it, if you're not following us at Alter Health or me at Dr. Benjamin Alter, go ahead and find me. Go ahead and follow me at Dr. Benjamin Alter at alter.health. That's where you can find our handles. And also, while you're at it, at Dr. Susanna Alter, the co-host of this podcast. She's got a pretty awesome Instagram too. finally, while you're at doing all your chores out there, I might as well, ask one more favor of you before we dive in. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the share, do those things. It really helps me out. And send this to someone who you know and love, someone who might be taking those initial steps in their plant-based journey. One more announcement, you guys. One more announcement. All right. So at Alter Health, we've got an amazing thing happening within our Facebook group. It's called Plant-Based and Stress-Free. So come on in. We've got a whole food plant-based challenge starting in a couple weeks. And if you miss this one, there's going to be another challenge around the corner. It's all about taking you into an empowered place of receiving the support, the education, the information, the inspiration that you need to really take your health to the next level. So come on in, find us at www.facebook.com/groups/alterhealth and join the fun in the plant-based and stress-free community. And that's all I got for you guys. So, take a breath, put your feet on the ground, continue doing what you're doing, but be here, be present, and enjoy this conversation with our guest, Glen John Jones. All right, Glen John Jones, welcome to the Alter Your Health podcast.
Hi, Benjamin. How you doing? Thanks for having me on here.
Absolutely. Thanks for reaching out and connecting. And I'm so excited to learn a little bit about who you are and your book and your journey in the vegan world and just in the world in general. So I thought
Brilliant.
maybe a good place to start would be kind of your background and how you came into, I know that you've kind of been in the fitness industry for some time, but how
Yeah.
kind of evolved into that. And then, you've got a health focus now. It's not just like fitness and sculpting your body, but it's like
Yeah.
well-being and health.
Yeah. You just nailed it spot on. It kind of went from one thing to the other. It started off as a little bit more of a kind of sculpting your body thing and all the rest of it, working more on the outside. And then over time, it became more about the health. But going back, I wasn't into either really. I wasn't into health or fitness as such. So in school, I wasn't really very sporty, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with myself when I left school. So my grades weren't particularly good either, so I was pretty screwed. And then it was just so happened that I'd done a few jobs that were quite physical, and I realised that I had this kind of natural fitness, and I enjoyed the graft. I'm not sure if you say that in America, but when you work hard, it's called graft.
Yeah, what I'm trying to I've never heard that word. Just kind of the the feeling of like being pumped and like sweating and exerting
Yeah,
yourself.
it's like a good way to kind of like military training where they're just absolutely beasted and they're just pushing themselves to the limit. It's grafting is like that either when you're training or if you're working on a building site or something like that, and it's just a really like brutal kind of physical
Yeah.
day.
But you love that
um,
feeling.
yeah, I didn't really like I found it difficult at times, but it was more the intricate, detailed side of like because it was the building trade. So it was more the like roofing specifically. So it was more the intricate side of it, like measuring everything up that I really struggled with. But when it came to heaving stuff around and going up and down ladders and, carrying stuff in really dangerous places, it kind of became something that I took to, and I realized, I might actually have a natural ability to like push myself a bit more than I realized.
Awesome. And so how did you, beyond the, construction, the roofing, how did you then push yourself physically?
Yeah. Well, I started going to the gym in the evenings after work. I was only young. I was probably around 18, 19. And then even after doing that full day of work where I felt quite exhausted, I would still go to the gym for like a couple of hours. And I just realized that I loved it. And I was so young and I was so green to it all. I didn't know what I was doing, but I
Mm.
enjoyed it.
Mhm.
and it became like a natural passion. And then going back to kind of how I was in school, where I wasn't really sure about what I was doing, it just meant that, okay, I'm not particularly smart. I don't have any like amazing physical qualities, but I finally found something that I really enjoy and I'm
Mhm.
passionate about. And it was more about what it did to me in the beginning, I guess. And then I just took on a course and then got qualified, did loads of certificates in lots of different things around it. And I've been doing that ever since I was like 21.
Awesome.
And I'm 31 now. So
Awesome.
been doing it for around 12 years.
Awesome. So, and then, so you found that you really liked that kind of pushing yourself and, testing your limits. And that really brought you into the gym and like in terms of and lifting weights and stuff like that. And I'm just
Yeah,
curious, like, where else do you find yourself pushing yourself in that way? Like, was writing the book kind of
yeah,
similar kind of feeling for you, or what else gives you that feeling?
absolutely. Without trying to sound too corny or that I'm like trying to pitch myself as this kind of white knight, I just think whenever there's like helping somebody attached to something, it kind of just brings out this different surge in
Mhm.
in your drive.
Mhm.
You're kind of you'd be more inclined to do something even when you don't want to do it. I think when it comes to helping other people, um, than if you was to do something for yourself. Sometimes, I guess that comes with experience. But with the training, once I got my qualifications, I thought, right, I can really help a lot of people here. And very similar with the book, it was like if I can write this and do it a certain way, this could help a lot of people. So even when I'm tired or even when I don't want to do it, I'm going to do it. So I really think that ties into it is just how you can affect and help out other people along the way.
For sure. I can definitely relate to that, feeling of really being connected with myself when I am present with another person, whether it's recording this podcast or working with a client or teaching a group. It's like
Yeah.
anything that brings me into that full present moment with another human being and with myself, it like that feeling, you know, carries us a long way.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I think it's that having that purpose of, I'm sure we'll get more into like the plant-based stuff, but it's just
Yeah.
having that purpose of, feeling like you're doing something quite big, which is impacting a lot of things that you don't necessarily know the full ins and outs of, because it's beyond you and it's bigger than you. It just
Yeah.
gets you going.
Yeah. So 10 years ago, you became a personal trainer, or 12 years ago, or something you said.
So 12
And
years ago, got in the industry, and 10 years ago, qualified as a PT.
got it. And
Yeah.
and then when did like at that point were you really focused in on nutrition, or was it just like weights and weights and more weights? Or like when
Yeah.
did nutrition and health become a big part of
Mm,
your physical training, personal training kind of routine?
yeah. Funnily enough, maybe only 4 years ago, the switch happened. But the primary motivation um, was to look good. So it
Mhm.
was, to impress girls was part of that. So that was the motivation of getting down the gym and stuff, being young, early 20s, wanting to look good and, wanting to look good in photos and lift heavy weights and just kind of, I guess, prove yourself a little bit. Um, and then I went traveling for a couple of years and just did fitness in bits and bobs. So I was kind of just keeping it ticking over. But then the switch happened around the age of say 26, maybe about 5 years ago. And that was just after I'd started up my own personal training business. So it was when I first became self-employed. And I soon realized that when I switched my attention from just weights and strength and performance in that aspect to more, overall energy levels across the whole day and nutrition and more, I guess, endurance sports, that was a major turning point. The fitness level and everything just started to improve. The energy levels from start to finish of the day, not just in a workout, but over the course of the whole day became so much better. And it just made life a bit easier.
Yeah. Where did you learn that, hey, if I eat more plants, maybe I'll have more energy? Because,
Yeah.
that I'm sure in gym culture, especially, it's kind of maybe the opposite we're led to believe is more true.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the shift came when I did start to focus more on health and just overall fitness and energy levels throughout the day. Um, I guess the way it was kind of weaved in was because for me, where I realized the difference between just eating loads of meat and lifting loads of weights and having a better overall performance and energy level was when I first started looking into endurance sports as, say, a bit of a challenge. And then I started to realize there's a lot of high level endurance athletes that thrive on a plant based diet. And that kind of gave me the green light to look into it more and
Was
then
there
start to
was there
experiment.
some book or documentary movie or person that kind of pointed you in that direction?
Yeah. So lots of documentaries, but there's one person who I'll always think about as being like that kind of shift for me is Rich Roll.
Yeah,
And
cool.
he's just such a dude at everything. But he quickly became kind of like, the example of, if you look at, when you're young, you get away with a lot of stuff. You can have bad night's sleep, you can eat rubbish, you can hurt yourself, and you just seem to bounce back. But I started to look at people who are a bit older that are doing amazing, and they just seem to be a lot younger than what they are, but also very wise. And he's just like the pinnacle for his age. Is just incredible. So he
Cool.
was kind of like my first inspo,
Yeah.
definitely.
Another rich roll fanboy.
Yeah,
Unite.
and you as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely a role model. And yeah, it's amazing that he's what, 53 now. And
yeah,
yeah, I feel like since I've seen him in the public eye, he's like the same or maybe even more youthful and vibrant, and
yeah.
it's like I'm I'm pretty that's where I want to go, in that
Yeah,
direction of agelessness and just feel good, do good. Yeah, cool.
yeah.
So
He's
that
like my
opened you up.
dad that I've never met. He's like my he's like my father figure from afar.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
Yeah,
that opened you up to, hey, like there's this world of endurance athletes. They're thriving on plants. I'm here in the gym. I'm lifting weights. I'm eating meat. I'm gonna give this a try. So talk to me about that thought process of like, oh, I see Rich Roll doing it. Like maybe I can try this. Like, was it just as simple as that, or were there more? I know in your book you talk about stages, and I definitely am. I'm
yeah,
sure I want to get into that, but what was your process?
yeah. It became a bit of a like the whole protein thing and the obsessive consumption that I was doing all that time became a bit unnecessary when I started to realize the difference in looking a certain way and feeling a certain way. And it's not that I don't think you can look the same if you really focused on it, on a vegan diet and a normal meat eater diet, for example. Um, but it's just became one of those things where I started to realize it's perhaps very unnecessary to have to wake up and cook my meat for the day or something, and then go and do a run, or because it was very counterintuitive to health to carry so much extra weight and muscle and just eat so much food that wasn't necessarily nutritious from a micronutrient standpoint, which is what then started to speed up the recovery when I started to eat more fruits and vegetables. So it became a very kind of natural shift once I realized that the um, the meat side of it for me personally was very unnecessary, and it actually affected me. If I did a bike ride or if I did a run, my stomach would feel horrendous. But if I ate quite clean during the day, had a salad, pretty basic stuff in the early days, potatoes instead of processed foods and things like that, started to just feel so energetic. And with no extra effort, I just started to get so much fitter, so much faster. It was quite quick how like how much I noticed the difference from switching the foods.
That's awesome. So was it kind of a light switch kind of thing? Like today I'm a meat eater, now I'm a plant eater?
Definitely not. Because I run a local business and stuff, I was very much aware that if I just change all of a sudden, everyone's going to go crazy.
Hey, what's this
Even though
guy? Yeah. I thought I knew Glen John Jones.
yeah, especially this kind of part of London where I live. I'm just outside of London, and I don't know if you've heard the term like geezer before, but everyone's a bit of a geezer,
Well, I
so they're
don't
not quite.
I've heard that term, but I've only heard it in like an old geezer, like someone who's
Yeah, it's a bit like that, to be honest with you. You got young people who are like old geezers.
you got young geezers and old geezers and
Yeah,
medium geezers. Yeah.
yeah. So the mindset's a little bit more closed than in a London, for
Okay.
example. Best way to explain it.
Yeah.
But still got the London kind of vibe, but just not as liberal, I guess. So yeah, when I first started looking into it, it was actually a bit of an in denial thing, because and this is what I talk about in my book, how it was very like inconvenient, because before I decided that I was going to make the switch, I just found that I couldn't eat meat full stop. So, you know, I wanted to eat more protein, but I couldn't, because my gut feeling had started switching on about meat and where it comes from and the ethical side of things, and it all just started to kind of spiral from there. And I first of all couldn't eat pork, and then it was beef, and then it was chicken, and it just kept going. And in the very beginning, I was in so much like I was a bit scared about the change happening. I just I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought, well, great, okay, so I don't eat animals. That's good for them, but what's going to happen to me? Because my education wasn't great back then. I thought, oh my god, I might be saving a few animals here, and I might be feeling good in my gut feeling, but am I going to get ill?
Yeah, and
uh,
especially, wrapped up in the gym culture where it's meat and weights. Yeah.
yeah, all my family said, "Why are you doing this? You don't need to change." And I said, it's not like I'm actually choosing for this to happen. It's happening to me.
Mm.
Like I've learned a few things along the way. I've seen a few videos and other documentaries, and I've read a lot of studies,
Mm.
and this is just like naturally happening. So I kind of reduced my meat consumption, um, which, to be honest with you, I reduced it without trying. It just happened, and then I took on, I guess, the title of pescatarian, um, like off my own back. I decided to give myself that label to make it a bit easier to explain to friends and stuff, and family members. If you go out with friends, oh no, I'm not eating meat. I'm kind of doing this pescatarian thing and
Mm.
stuff like that. And then vegetarian, then mostly vegan, and then vegan. But it just made it a lot easier for me to just kind of have the labels and talk to my clients about it that way as it went along, without just
So that
jumping
so that was
straight in.
your so that was your journey of like less meat and then like, okay, I'm just gonna eat fish. And then
Yeah,
okay, I'm just gonna eat like, dairy and eggs maybe every once in a while. And then I'm gonna eat mostly plants. Then I'm gonna only plants.
yeah.
That's kind of the progression. Are these your book that you wrote? What the title again? Sorry,
Think and grow vegan.
Think and Grow Vegan. Yeah, I really do love that. And is that kind of the progression that you generally talk about in the book?
Yeah, I talk a lot about it being a gradual transition, because sometimes if you jump into something too quick, and I know this coming from my background in the fitness industry, if you jump into something too quick, sometimes you can lack a bit of confidence in what you're doing. But I think the vegan thing kind of just becomes you as you go along, or the plant-based diet thing, however you want to kind of call it. I
Mhm.
think that just becomes you as you go along, and you just attain new knowledge and new little tips and tricks and hacks of how to make it more convenient, and how to make yourself more healthy, and not think too deeply into things. So the gradual transition is a big thing in the book, and for me personally, it took me 6 months. But I think some people can just click their fingers and do it overnight, and fair play. But I don't. How did your kind of transition happen?
Well, it happens a few times.
Oh, okay,
But
yeah,
back to your I'll share in a second if you'd like, but back to
yeah,
your, you said that it took 6 months. So you decided like, okay, I wanna go vegan. I see Rich Roll doing his thing. That's where I
yeah,
wanna go. But you made the conscious choice. I'm not gonna just go from where I am today to that. I'm going to move in that trajectory in kind of a slow, mindful way so I don't disrupt myself, disrupt my community, my family, my work environment, my social environment. You just kinda
yeah.
took that gradual trajectory.
Absolutely. There was a lot of fear attached to it. You know,
Mhm.
I just wasn't sure what was going to happen because once I'd realised that I could probably do it and be healthy, you know, I'm luckier than most people in a sense where I've done, you know, a couple of certificates in nutrition and I've been around it for 12 years. But I wasn't sure how I was going to be with my work. I wasn't sure how I was going to be with my friends and family. You know, I knew that I could do it from a health standpoint because all the science said that you can do it. And then you look at people like Rich Roll and you say, "Oh, I can thrive." But I was just so worried about how it was going to be perceived in my career, and you know, I almost felt like I had to defend myself without declare, you know, how do I do this? I don't talk about it, or do I tell my
Mm.
clients, or do I do diet plans and put meat in? And it, you know, it was a bit of a conundrum for a while. um but
So were
then
you kinda like, for a little while, were you kinda like in the closet vegan?
yeah.
Yeah.
In-
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, Benjamin, I didn't really talk about it until the book came out,
Huh.
and people read it and said to me that it was really good, and that gave me the green light to talk about it more with people openly because I'd just brush over it before.
Yeah.
Um, in my area, I think there's only one other vegan. so
Wow. Because
um,
I thought that the UK is kinda blowing up.
it really is. It
Yeah.
absolutely is. But I never knew about this because I was kind of not talking about it as such unless people asked me. So if someone asked me about it, I'd say yeah, and then I'd just try not to get too deep, and they'd be like, "Oh, what are your reasons?" And I'd just say, "Oh," or just I just kind of brush over it. But I'm open to having conversations about it now because people can read my story, and they realize that it's not quite like a cynical approach to make them feel inferior or something like that. So I kind of got the green light and was able to talk about it. But sometimes now it does give me a little bit of like, because I'm not like that kind of guy, like, oh, hi, I'm Glenn, I'm a vegan.
Mhm.
But when the book came out, obviously it was like announcing on social media and things like that. But then everyone has been amazing about it and so supportive. And I guess it is good timing because, like you say, it is blowing up here.
Mhm.
People are more understanding of it. Veganuary now over here is huge. So it's really cool. And now that everything started to go like quite well, like I said, got the green light, I then started to follow more plant-based pages and vegan pages and started to meet up, with people and put myself out there and make friends, people like yourself,
Mhm.
whereas before I'd have never ever done that
Mhm.
because they just I wouldn't have wanted to, dip into that stuff, especially for people to see and judge. So yeah, it was holding me back a little bit.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, just to speak to your, your question before about my kind of story going
yeah,
vegan, it's funny because when I was like in high school, I traveled to Japan. I have got like a Japanese brother. He was an exchange student that stayed with us, and so we are always maintain connection. And I traveled to Japan and traveled with them, and he took me around eating everywhere, and he jokingly used to call me T-Rex
yeah,
because all I wanted to eat, I guess, was just meat, and I would
yeah,
always order the meat on the menu.
yeah,
So I was such a meat eating guy up through high school, and then as I reflect, I realized that I would really only eat meat when I would go out to a restaurant, like
right,
when I would be served meat. I really never I can't really remember ever cooking meat and like buying meat at
Wow.
the market and cooking it. I probably grilled a few times, but it wasn't a normal thing. And it kind of like would creep me out to like raw meat. It was like
Mm,
I didn't want to touch it, but I would love eating it. And so then when I started to like cook for myself more, it was just like I'm not gonna go to the meat counter and buy slabs of raw meat. And then I just naturally became kind of pretty plant-based. And I
yeah.
also never really liked dairy and cheese or anything. So it was like when I started to live, it wasn't really till I was living by myself, when I was studying or working abroad in Europe, and I was preparing all my own meals. I was just eating basic plant-based meals, and then I would go out to eat and probably have some indulgences and feel crappy and that sort of thing. But it was just kind of a very natural thing, and then I started medical school. I started naturopathic medical school, and the predominant kind of nutritional philosophy amongst my colleagues, students, was pretty paleo.
Yeah.
So I kind of was peer pressured into eating more meat, or eating meat again. And to be honest, felt great. I felt like when I started
Mm,
eating a little bit of meat again, I was like, man, I was missing something.
yeah.
And then I did more kind of education and understanding about nutrition, obviously through medical school and through my own kind of self study, and then weaned myself back off of meat, naturally, because I never really liked, I went from that T Rex guy to like, oh, I actually don't really like the feeling of eating meat. Um,
Yeah.
so I weaned myself off much more mindfully, knowing, and I'm sure we can talk about this a little bit, all of the most common pitfalls that I fell into as a plant-based eater in terms of just not getting enough nutrition.
Mm,
People think about, oh, it's the iron, it's the protein, it's the, this micronutrient or that, but it really comes down to just the calorie content. Plant-based foods are low calorie foods, and
yes.
I'm haven't really had the best connection and sensitivity to my hunger, like appetite. So I would
Yes.
always just kind of eat the standard serving of what I was served or what would like fill the plate, and like, okay, I guess that was enough. I wouldn't it was maybe a little bit of a disordered eating pattern in the sense that I would just kind of follow society and not really follow and trust my own hunger and satiety signals. But anyways, I think I was just malnourished on a plant-based diet. And
Yeah.
now, I eat mountains of food, and I'm conscious of my hunger, and I, nourish myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like a very similar pattern,
Yeah.
as well, mate. Because I went before I did the plant-based diet. I was very much focused on a paleo diet for about 3 years, and having gone from a normal, you know, mainstream kind of diet, which was more focused still around protein because I was obviously doing the lifting and stuff. But then going to paleo, which in my opinion is like a gateway to plant based because it
Yeah.
kind of pulls you off the processed foods.
It's a whole food
Um,
diet. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah, and just felt amazing for it in the beginning, and then realized had guaranteed gains in the gym from the sheer amount of protein that you're eating. I was having beef for breakfast and eggs for breakfast and all that crazy stuff, and then after a while, I started to like you, the raw meat thing just started to everything just started to become weird. I just thought it was a bit long. Why do you have to have a different chopping board for meat? Why have you got to be so conscious about washing your hands? And
Yeah.
it just started to all these things that never bothered me just started to play on my mind.
Yeah.
Um, and then, to be honest with you, when I was doing the paleo diet, I never even done any proper research into it. Just literally the fact that a couple of people really promoted it as um, a caveman diet slash hunter gatherer diet, and I didn't really think too deeply into it, but I just thought about cavemen, manly, big, go out, kill, bring it home for your family kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
It's
and then
it's kind of sexy. It's a sexy dream. Like,
it
yeah,
should
I
it
want to
should
do
work.
that.
But then you realize that once you start actually thinking about it more in detail, and you think, wow, it's probably more of a gatherer hunter, not a
Right,
hunter gatherer.
right,
You're probably more likely to be foraging than you are hunting. That must be once in a blue moon.
right. I don't think that it was every day of the week that they were making the kill.
Yeah.
And, I always
Yeah.
like to say that, it was also a survival diet,
Hmm.
not a diet to thrive, but a diet merely to survive. And,
Yeah.
the longevity of cavemen was not extraordinary. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah,
I've gone through a couple of times, even on the paleo diet, where I felt like I was questioning it. But I never ever thought, oh, it's because I'm not getting X amount of this or that,
yeah,
because you feel like you're ticking all the boxes because you're eating meat and things. But then I realized that I was probably just near burnout because I was just working loads and,
yeah,
either training too much or just not getting enough sleep. But
yeah,
then on the vegan diet, on the plant-based diet, I find the same thing. There's been a couple of times where if I've gotten a little bit tired, I've been on it for 5 years now, but if I've gotten a little bit tired in my head beforehand, before I knew more about it, like what you said about the volume and the calories, I'd be questioning it and I'd be thinking it's not because I'm not, I'm not eating meat. When in reality, I'd probably only got 4 hours sleep,
right.
and you just
It's
need to sleep.
yeah, it's such an important topic or point that you're bringing up. Just, there's more to health and there's more to
Yeah,
well-being than simply what goes in our mouth.
yeah.
And
That's,
absolutely, it's
someone was
important.
talking.
It's
Yeah,
important,
sorry.
but it's not the end all be all. Yeah.
Yeah, someone was talking to me about the protein thing recently as well, and they asked me about the protein, and they said, are you not worried about getting enough protein, or how do you make sure that you get enough protein on a vegan diet? And I said, well, no, they're saying like to build muscle, so enough protein to build muscle. And
Yeah.
I said, well, increase your protein consumption, keep training the way you are, keep living the way you are, increase your protein consumption, and if you're still not building muscle, then it's not protein. Lifestyle factors are so important.
Yeah, and well, I am curious about kind of your experience personally and maybe working with people as a personal trainer. Have you
Yeah,
Because from my awareness, it's like there's not even really that strong of a connection with like more protein, more muscle. I mean,
yeah,
like there's so many more factors. Obviously, you need to be
mm,
moving your muscles, you need to be sleeping well, you need to be hydrating, you need to be eating all the other macronutrients and micronutrients that are
yeah,
used to build the muscles. So it's not just protein muscle, but I'm curious if you've, experienced personally, like maybe your diet now is lower protein. That's a whole nother thing. It's like it's probably
absolutely.
not that much lower protein.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit lower, but have you experienced any decrease in gains in the gym, or do you see in the with your clients any decrease in like strength or gains?
No. And do you know why? Because gains, yes, but I find that fitness is very specific. So the longer you do it for, you realize how specific fitness actually is. And it's just you can get skilled at anything that you focus on. So if you focus specifically on juggling, you can get amazing at it. If
Yeah.
you've never done it before, you probably can't do it. If you decide that you want to build muscle in the gym, then you can do that. If you decide that you just want to kind of get fit, then that means you're going to be doing lots of different things. So it's actually going to be hard to measure exactly what you're getting good at. But from personal experience and with clients that have either reduced meat intake or dairy products, or animal products rather, and have focused on getting stronger or focused on building muscle, they still can do it. And for myself personally, I find that strength gains happen at exactly the same rate as what they did before, when I was focusing on it. But now it's just a supplement to help my endurance sports tick over, because strength work just makes you feel like you have low risk of injury and you feel a bit more springy and pingy on the bike or in the pool or something like that. But
Hmm.
but yeah, I just find that people can just, as long as they know what it is they're focusing on, and they're focusing on that, then yeah, they can absolutely do it. And a big conversation that never comes around is, when it comes to building muscle, is carbohydrate. Everyone's
Oh
so
yeah.
obsessed with protein,
Yeah.
but are you getting enough carbohydrate as well? Because if you're just eating protein, your body might not actually be using it effectively because you're not having the carbs as well. It's a subject that just gets overlooked so much.
I'm sure if any keto paleo dude bro is listening to this, which they're probably not, sadly. But if
Yeah,
anyone was, they'd probably just be like, what? What
yeah.
did this guy just say? Glen John who? What is he talking about? So just we can have this conversation briefly. What are you talking about? Why do we need carbohydrate to build muscle?
Well, number one, if you're eliminating a certain macronutrient, you're on a like restricted eating pattern. So you might find it difficult to actually hit daily caloric targets, because you're just going to be getting it predominantly from protein and fat, and just hopefully you're eating enough of both to hit daily caloric targets. If you're quite obsessed with fat as well as carbohydrates, then you're going to find it very difficult to hit your daily caloric targets from protein alone. Uh,
Yeah,
and
because fat is, 9 calories per gram, protein is, and carbs 4 calories per gram. It's
yeah,
easy to get enough. That's why, high fat diets, it's easy to meet your caloric requirements. But yeah, you're saying high protein diets without focusing on the other macronutrients. Yeah.
yeah, and any kind of restricted eating pattern just makes it more
Yeah.
difficult for you to hit daily caloric targets. So if you're trying to build muscle, then you generally need to be in a surplus, unless you're caloric surplus, unless you're taking some sort of enhancer to help boost testosterone while you're in a caloric deficit. Because
Mm.
when you're in a caloric deficit, your body is in like a degenerative state where it's
Right.
actually trying
Yeah.
to break itself down.
Right.
So that's one part of it. But then with your carbohydrates, for most people as well, they're going to give you the energy and they're going to give you the zing, and they're going to help with recovery to actually fuel an effective performance in the gym, to give you stimulus,
Yeah.
to give your
And
muscles the right stimulus.
And my understanding is that muscle, like the bulk that we see, it's like glycogen, right? Which is the
Yeah,
storage form of carbohydrate. That's a big part of like what actually makes our muscles muscles.
yeah. Um, I haven't looked into this stuff for so long, but there's a lot of talk about when you're mixing protein with carbohydrate. So I can't actually quite study right now. It's been so long since I looked into it, of how it will then be transported into the cell to
Yeah.
increase the rate of cell growth, like in regards to building muscle. Um, so there's lots of things like that that are just so overlooked.
Yeah.
Uh, no one's ever like, "Where'd you get your carbs from?"
Well, it's fun to geek out about these macronutrients, but I always come back time and time again, just reminding myself, reminding the world, reminding everyone that in every single plant that grows on planet Earth, there is carbohydrates,
Yeah,
is protein, all of the amino acids essentially, and there is fat. All of even a potato or a banana has a good amount of fat in it, as much as
yeah.
we need, in fact.
Mm.
So we don't need to nerd out on the macronutrients, even though it's fun,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, personally, I found, since doing the endurance sports, you're very lucky because you can just eat so much food, and you never, well, depends on the intensity of training. This is in context to the person,
Mm.
but it's quite difficult to gain weight if you're doing, say, a triathlon kind of setup. So the more kind of exercise you do, obviously, it's difficult to put on weight anyway, and that goes for any real type of training, unless you're just like binging a lot on junk foods. So the old saying of, you can't out train a bad diet.
Yeah.
If you're eating whole food, plant based, it's quite difficult to actually still cheat your training to the point where you're gaining weight, even if you have a little bit of time away from it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Well, I want to shift, we could talk about
Yeah.
so many things, but I want to shift towards the book and
Cool.
first you like learn about this inspiration that led you to sit yourself down and put this thing together.
Yeah.
When did that click, and what was that process like?
Yeah. So we go full circle all the way back to kind of where we started in how I wanted to help people. Because when I first became a personal trainer, from my own kind of enthusiasm in the early days and being young and having a lot of energy to burn, and like I said, wanting to impress girls and things, I got myself a few injuries in the gym. And one of them, when I was 21, was a lower back injury that was like a chronic thing that was just there for ages. And the irony was that I actually did the injury warming up. That's how bad I'd got myself to, because I was just so keen and so enthusiastic. And that lingered for about 5 years. And then, touch wood, hopefully, I've managed to get rid of it now. I haven't had any problems for a long time, but that took me 5 whole years, and it just messed me up so much to the point where I'd be questioning, is this going to be good for me? Is the gym going to be good for me? Even though I knew it was. So I kind of wanted to use that experience of feeling like if I had a personal trainer when I first started training, I probably wouldn't have had that injury. And who knows what I could have done in that 5 years, other than trying to just simply not make it worse in some cases. So in regards to the plant-based diet, once I realized after 6 months that it was making me feel incredible, I had more energy, and I could see what was happening in the mainstream, lots of people are going to be more open to taking it on. I wanted to be that person to kind of help people, be a bit of a companion in their journey from the start, to just educate them as much as I could, to kind of like have my own story weaved in with some misconceptions and a little bit of, fun facts,
Mhm.
but just kind of like guide them through the process so they didn't have that experience of trying it, not liking it, and then going, oh, the vegan diet's rubbish, doesn't work for me, it's crap, it's bad for you, or something like that. Because I'm living proof that if you do it this way, then you could potentially be quite happy on it, and maybe be better off. So that was the main motivation for getting this book done, because I just wanted to be that companion for someone in the early days, just so they don't feel like they make loads of mistakes and it just completely puts them off.
Mhm. How long did it take you to write the book?
Oh, yeah. Oh my god, some people like just crack up when I tell them this, but it was about 3 years.
Yeah. I don't crack
And
up. I mean, I've had like, multiple books on multiple back burners, and yeah,
wicked.
yeah.
Yeah. It's because I opened a fitness studio, a personal training studio, with a friend at the
Mm.
same time. Probably I started writing a book maybe a few months before that, and me and a friend opened up a personal training studio. So we had a lot of time and energy went into getting that up and running. And then obviously I'm quite busy with clients, like one-on-one clients, and endurance sports is the most time-consuming thing you could do. So
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, what is your endurance sport, or are you a triathlete?
yeah, so I'm trying to shift to like middle distance triathlon, like half Ironman distance.
Cool.
I've done my first one recently, and I've done a ultra marathon recently. But I quite like the middle distance. I've done a few trail marathons, and prior to that, I used to do Spartan Beast races, and I used to love Spartan Beasts. That was
Awesome.
like perfect distance. Done quite well when I really when I was on form, and then the injury risk started getting a bit too crazy for me. I needed to be in control more, and that's how I kind of found triathlon.
Mhm.
So, how about you?
Well, I'm actually not that much of a competitor in terms of like getting myself into races. However, now that I'm on the record, I
Yeah,
am thinking of signing up for my first ever running event, an
amazing.
old like a 50K or something.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
So
that was a
just thought I'd
good
skip.
challenge.
I'll skip the marathon and just go into the ultra. You know,
Well,
um,
technically, anything over 26.2
right.
miles is a ultra, so you could
Yeah.
you could
It's the baby ultra, the baby
yeah.
ultra. But actually throughout undergrad, I was on my university triathlon team. So that's kind of how I got into pushing
Brilliant.
my body a little bit. And then I kind of went on a 10-year hiatus or whatever. um,
Brilliant.
yeah, but so this book, you sat yourself down and you got it done, and it sounds like the mission is really pure to support people and show them
Yeah.
these kind of proven steps to transform their health and their lives. So what
Yeah.
like and we kind of talked about that journey from pescatarian, yada yada. But beyond that, like what do you find are the most important? I'm not trying to get like to the well, maybe I am trying to ask like
Yeah. This is
what is
cool.
like the most important thing in your book that you think everyone needs to know?
Um, oh, it's a good question.
And I don't
The
want to like,
most,
I want people to buy the book still.
yeah,
We
the
we don't
most,
want to give it all away, but what's like the nugget in there that you think everyone should really understand and know and implement?
there's a lot of things to be honest with you, but I think it always comes back to the same principles of healthy eating. And there's this one particular thing that I repeat maybe twice or three times. Uh, and it's that it's not the diet, it's the individual, and this is how people have been successful on paleo diets. This is how people have been successful on old school Atkins diets or whatever, and
Mm,
or just normal eating without even saying that they're doing something. It's not always the diet, it's how you approach it. Um, and you can eat meat and be really unhealthy and end up in hospital with malnutrition just as much as you could on a vegan diet, on a plant-based diet. Um, so I think that it comes down to individual choices and individual responsibilities. I like the idea that the plant-based diet is, of course, a nice template, and it does make things like black and white. And generally, it's pushing you over to a more, I guess, healthier version. Foods are like more nutritious, so it makes it easier if you do decide to eat whole food plant-based to eat more healthy options. But you're still in control. Even if you say I'm a vegan or I'm on a plant-based diet, that doesn't mean you're going to be healthy unless you take responsibility and you educate yourself on foods. And same in the mainstream. If you just believe every single bit of marketing you see without looking into it, you could end up unhealthy. So yeah, I'd say
oh,
it's not the
yeah.
diet, it's the individual.
Yeah, no, that's good. And when you say like are you kind of coming at this from like a weight loss, weight and weight maintenance perspective, or because
Yeah,
as I see a plant-based diet, a lot of people talk about this concept of bio individuality, and we all, blood type, and we should be eating this and that based on
yeah,
where we live and blah blah blah. But it seems pretty evident that human beings are human beings, and just like monkeys have a diet and elephants have a diet and giraffes
yeah,
have a diet, like humans have a diet, and that diet is plant-based. um but when you so talk to me more about what you mean by like it's about the individual.
yeah. Like like I was saying before, how you're I was eating before like a normal diet or a paleo diet, for example, getting tired in the middle of the day, and it was just like everything else was involved in it. It wasn't just the food I was eating, it was everything. If sometimes people have said to me like, do you feel better for going plant-based? And I say, coupled with the fact that I've lost about 12 kilos of muscle that I just didn't need to have, which was just
Mhm.
purely aesthetic and superficial, which I don't even personally think now. I just think I look like I look fine. Before I thought like that was the pinnacle, but now I just think, I look like a normal bloke, but I'm quite happy with that. I think that there's just more to it. It's not just it's the way that you approach everything. I say, like, I don't want to fall in that trap of going, yes, go vegan and everything's going to get better overnight, because you need to make sure you're sleeping well. If you're drinking, or if you're smoking, or if you have toxic relationships, that is going to make you feel like rubbish. And it's kind of everything. So it's your individual responsibility to get good sleep, to make sure you're exercising, on a regular basis. If you've got any injuries or niggles that you're carrying around with you and it's making you depressed, get it fixed. I don't really go too deep into that stuff in the book, but that's what I mean. By that, sure.
Yeah, like
It's everything.
once again, that what we put in our mouth is just one piece of the pie, one piece of
Yeah,
the picture, the puzzle, not the
it's
pie.
funny how it's it's funny how it's such a big thing though, and I think it's because if you imagine a 24-hour day and we're awake for say 16 hours, some lucky people will get 8 hours get 8 hours sleep. But you've got a lot of time to eat in that window, and I think that's why it does seem like it is a massive deal, but everything is involved in that. But you realistically could have 3 balanced meals a day, like a conventional approach, and feel amazing, without overcomplicating anything, as long as you're sleeping, you're exercising, and you're just looking after yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Great. So I feel like this could potentially open up another hour conversation, but
Yeah.
uh, but we won't get there yet. But I
Yeah.
just I'm curious about the environmental and ethical pieces, because
Mm,
your book is titled Think and Grow Vegan, which
yes.
is an ideological way of living, not
Yeah.
only a diet. So why did you title it Think and Grow Vegan and not just Think and Grow plant-based or something
Yeah.
like that?
That's a great question. And I've been thinking about that a lot and a lot more lately. And I think it's because how plant-based has basically, but vegan has been rebranded as plant-based in the mainstream. And it's done wonders because the word vegan used to scare people off
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
And plant-based has got people in. And now it's becoming like all about ethical and sustainable fashion. And it's just going from one thing to the next. So it's brilliant how the plant-based diet has kind of worked wonders to bring in people that don't have that, say, gut feeling about the ethical side of things. But when I first started doing it, plant-based wasn't really a thing. So in my mind, it was just, I'm on a vegan diet, or I'm probably going to end up on a vegan diet.
Yeah.
And then everything else is kind of coming in with that now. So I seek to basically not buy or use anything that contains animal products now. However, my knowledge is not as good in that stuff as it is in nutrition, because I've done nutrition for so long and I've only done this stuff. It's only really occurred to me that bloody animal products aren't just in food everywhere, they're everywhere. Or it's been tested on animals and things like that. So I'm just learning this one like a lot slower. So I'm, that kind of think and grow vegan adage, I never put this in the book, but I have started to realize that I am still growing myself. And
I
it
hope
did
so.
start with the plant-based diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope you're still
And
growing.
yeah, it did start with the plant-based diet, but it is just bringing everything in now. And it feels good. In the book as well, I mentioned that while I was kind of interested in looking more into the benefits of a plant-based diet, the ethical thing, came in for me when I saw a video of it was a viral video on Facebook, popped up, of this girl, and she had a pig on her. It was like a piglet on her shoulder, like it was like a little baby, and she was crying, and the pig was crying, and she was singing to it, and it was the first time that I'd ever put two and two together. And normally I'd have just scrolled past that stuff, and it just like popped up, and I was like, wow. And that's when it all kind of started. So in the very beginning, I was able to associate that kind of ethical thing with it, and that also motivated me, I guess, to keep going, even when I was maybe thinking, oh my god, if I stop eating this, then I'm going to feel horrendous or something, or I'm going to get weak or whatever. But yeah, the whole I've only just realized the difference in the definition between plant-based and vegan, in the last couple of years because of just how big it's got so fast. Just plant-based is just huge. But yeah, I'm definitely focusing on everything now, from my like product like shampoos and body washes, all the way to like clothes and things like that. You know, I'm not just buying clothes for the sake of it or for fashion. I'm like using clothes that I've had for like 5-10 years or whatever. Just all of that stuff it's all just becoming a big part of it now. But I think everyone is getting more aware of where stuff's coming from now, and not just your food, but everywhere. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's
It
important.
can't hurt.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, I think it definitely does ruffle some feathers. The V word, you know, people
Yeah,
are like still, you know, a little like, I mean, it triggers some people, but I think in a good way, to like make people realize, oh, there are people living in this world who are maybe going out of their way to be extra conscientious about their choices and the implications of all of their actions and behaviors. And like they're, you know, it's like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was one of them things where, you know, like you kind of just assumed that everyone was the same if they associated themselves with that,
Hmm.
and you just kind of put everyone in a box and just was like, right, they're annoying, they're unhealthy, they're hippies, you know, they don't look after themselves.
Yeah.
They're like a cult, you
Yeah.
know, and all the stereotypes that you can throw out there. And then now that it's under the kind of guise of a plant-based diet, it seems perfectly acceptable to everyone,
Hmm.
and it's like amazing. But it's kind of always been there. So I mean, fair play to everyone that was kind of there a long time ago doing it without having the green light of society.
Yeah. So, Glen John Jones, tell me,
Yes.
in a nutshell, why should somebody who is going into their vegan plant-based lifestyle, why should they pick up a copy of your book?
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, mate.
Yeah.
I think that um, I think it's because in the very beginning I say, you know, I'm not an environmentalist, I'm not a cardiologist, I'm not an animal rights activist, you know, as such, but I have got a experience and a skill at getting people from A to B when they've decided that they're going to, you know, they've set their mind to a goal. I can help them achieve that. And in the beginning, if you're not sure of what it takes to get yourself into a plant-based diet, it can seem overwhelming because you become bombarded with politics. Sometimes you get bombarded with environmental stuff, um, uh, ethical stuff, and if you're just average Joe, or you're just someone who literally just hasn't got the time for that stuff, or you're just not interested in it, but you've got this kind of seed planted in your head that you want to try a plant-based diet and see how you feel, then I think my book can help you a lot, because I'll give you the kind of ins and outs of what you'd need without going in too deep, without turning it into a science degree, but just giving you the facts. And when I wrote the book with my editor, I went back and forth, and you know, a lot of the facts that were put in there were like quick kind of fun facts, but kind of weaved into it without it seeming like you're just being bombarded. So there's a bit of humor, and you'll still learn stuff. And then one of the things I wanted it to be like is the kind of facts that you learn in it is the stuff that you can tell your friends about down the pub, or when you're out with your mates. Just little memorable bits here and there that you can say to them, and then you just take that with you, and then hopefully just help you and just get a good kind of honest take on what it's like, without feeling overwhelmed.
Love it. And are you a fan of Think and Grow Rich? Is that like, you know, the play on the title?
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that book. And have you read it or listened
I
to it?
have, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know, I definitely love it, and I think it's a powerful book. And it's like, wow, this book was written how many
yeah,
decades ago? It's just
it's
wow.
amazing.
Yeah,
Apparently, it took him like 25 years to write as
yeah.
well, and I just
Hey, it only
respected that
took you
book.
3 years to write yours,
I
man.
know. So, and to this day, I still hear people quote them about how that book changed their life. I hear a lot of people talk about that.
Yeah.
And the main message I got from that book was the kind of persistence, and how you just keep going at something. When you decide that you want to achieve something, you just persist. And I just found that just fascinating, considering it was written so long ago. And the kind of think and grow vegan thing is, in my mind, it was like, right, you think and grow vegan, you kind of grow into that title. So I don't know if Napoleon Hill had the same the same idea,
Yeah,
but
he
yeah,
would.
I love
Yeah,
that book.
I'm sure he'd be all right with it.
Yeah,
So, Glen John Jones, where can people connect with you out in the world on social media or whatever? I don't even know if we're connected yet, but we will
yeah,
be. And
yeah, man.
where can people find your book? I imagine Amazon and stuff, but tell us.
Yeah. So I'm kind of using two Instagram handles at the moment. I got at Glen John Jones, so that's more of my kind of PT stuff, as well as like a little bit of book and stuff. And then I've got the Think and Grow Vegan page. I don't tend to use many of the other social media stuff platforms at the moment.
Just
Um,
Instagram.
just Instagram for the moment. And my book is available on Amazon. Think and Grow Vegan, and it's also available if you're UK based in all of the major UK retailers. So there's a big stores over here called Waterstones, and the physical copies get sold in there, and Foils as well. And then there's another company called WH Smiths. But as far as I know, you can actually order it in, because I have distributors, so they've managed to get it in a lot of different countries. And some shops, that maybe there's somewhere in the US, but there's some shops that will actually order it. You can order it in from there, and they'll have it delivered to them, and they'll work with my distributor. But I just think Amazon's probably the easiest if
It
you're abroad.
it is. I mean, yeah, it's a love-hate relationship for sure. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm sure many can relate. But super cool. Yeah, definitely looking forward to getting my hands on a copy, and it seems like a really valuable resource for the millions and probably soon to be billions of people
Mm.
taking this journey.
Absolutely. I think it's going to go this way. And
Yeah.
chapter 4, mostly vegan, is where I envision the world eventually. And I think some people will, of course, resist, but I think a lot of people will eventually start to eat more plant-based foods in the place of animal products, and will find themselves at kind of like a happy level where they have meat or dairy products every now and then. But I just see the tipping point happening. Well, I did think originally 20 years, but after the way things have gone in the last couple of years, it's amazing how
Yeah.
quickly things are shifting. So
Yeah.
I mostly vegan, I think, is where most people are going to be um, in about 20 years, I'd say.
Yeah, it's we're approaching that critical mass for sure. So
Yeah,
I'm one last kind of question,
yes,
just to wrap things up. You mentioned these kind of fun facts that you could share with a friend at the pub. Like what is one of your favorite fun facts about a vegan plant-based diet, or maybe a fun fact that you think a lot of people don't know but they should know?
yeah. I think that fresh attracts fresh when it comes to foods. So I think this one helps massively. And that's because if you eat like fresh food, you're more likely to put fresh food with it. If you constantly just eat processed foods and things that you don't want, the things that obviously taste amazing, you're just going to put that with that. So this is in one of my summaries, and I put a summary at the end of each stage, so you can kind of take bits from it. But I think fresh attracts fresh is a very important way to look at your food. If you're eating fresh fruits and vegetables, you'll probably couple that with more fresh fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, that's
And
a
if you,
really good point. You're not gonna have like an apple and a donut. Like, yeah,
yeah,
that kind of
uh,
clashes. Doesn't,
and I
yeah,
realized this when I went from meat, just eating meat to pescatarian was probably the most significant jump in health I'd ever had in my life. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Meat has been holding me back. But I realized it wasn't necessarily that, because eventually I got rid of fish, because I'm at plant-based now. But it was because when you'd have meat, you'd also have, say, for example, you had beef, you'd probably have it with, or egg, you might have a bit of cheese with it, and then you might put it in some bread, or you might have something like that, and you don't have as many vegetables, and it just kind of happened. But when I was eating fish, like salmon or something, I'd actually steam fresh vegetables or potatoes to go with it.
Yeah.
And it became this thing. I realized the fish is making me eat fresher than what meat is. And then at the vegetarian stage, I actually went back the other way to eating, say, crap on crap again, because it was like, I'm allowed to eat cheese, I'm allowed to eat eggs, so I'm going to have, this with that. And it was like bread again, or it was like chips or something. And then when I realized, oh my God, it's not the fish, because I was like, oh, I need to get back on the fish. I realized it was the fact that I just wasn't eating fresh food anymore. Just get back on the steamed vegetables, get back on the fruits. Yeah, just keep fresh attracts fresh.
Fresh attracts fresh. That is the law of attraction, huh?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, really a great pleasure to get to know you a little bit, Glen John Jones, and
you,
learn about
Benji.
your book.
Yeah, great chatting to you, mate. Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Peace and love, and we'll see you guys next time.
Brilliant. Take care. See you, mate.